106 Afghans bound for Canada got on a rescue flight on Friday, the second flight that Canadian forces have managed to get out of Kabul, at least since the Taliban took control. Other flights happened before that. Government officials say the flights will continue as long as the airport remains under Allied control. Marco Mendicino is the Minister of Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship. Nice to see you this morning.
Good morning, Rosie.
I want to start with what seems to be the ongoing issue in Kabul, and that's getting people into the airport. We've heard many reports of the chaos at the gates and what is happening to people there. What is Canada doing to make sure the people we have identified as bringing to Canada can actually physically get through the masses into where they need to go?
Well, I'm going to come to the details of that question, but first let me just express what a shocking and tragic moment we're seeing unfolding in Afghanistan. It is very distressing to hear the reports of those who are trying to get out, and I want to begin by assuring everyone that we are exhausting every effort to get them into the airport, to get them on flights into Canada as quickly as possible. You're quite right that the situation on the ground is very volatile, and what we have done is we have mobilized everybody in my department and right across the government, including the members of the armed forces who are on the ground, to get information to them as quickly and as precisely as possible. The members of our armed forces have full operational discretion to make the calls on the ground to get people into the airport and to get them onto flights. And I'll just say at a high line, those flights are continuing. To date, we have evacuated over 1,100 people, and those flights are going to continue to go out as long as possible.
And that number, though, is from before the Taliban took over Kabul, before the situation got to where we are now. You said that the Canadian forces can take all operational decisions they need. What does that mean from your perspective? Does that mean that they can use force? Does that mean they can go outside the wire? Does that mean they can go and bring people into the airport?
Well, those are all very important questions in terms of how we get people through the gate, how we get them from the gate to the flight, how we get them onto the flight, and the capacity of people that are on the flight. And those are all within the domain of expertise of the members of our armed forces. They are working in a very dangerous situation, and their primary mission is to provide that corridor in as safe and as secure manner as they can. Yeah. And they are doing that work exceptionally.
It does sound, though, as though the corridor is not there, with all due respect, and I realize you're not in charge of the Canadian Armed Forces, but we did speak to an Afghan interpreter yesterday who was told, get to this gate. They get there, they can't find the Canadian Armed Forces. They're told just to yell out Canada. There's nobody there. So I guess my question is, from a government perspective, should you be sending buses out to meet people? Germany has sent helicopters to go and take people and bring them to the airport. Should we be more proactive in getting the people where they need to go?
Well, we're going to exhaust every possible option, and those decisions will be undertaken by our armed forces, given the state of the situation on the ground. And what we're doing on our side is we are continuing to stay in constant contact with the people that we're trying to get out in terms of where they go, when they go, how they can ensure their safety, other steps that we are taking to provide as much security as we can on the ground. But you're quite right. The situation is volatile. The bottom line is that we have to exhaust every possible effort to continue to build on the momentum that we have established thus far. And I'll just point out that, Canada took the difficult decision about a decade ago to withdraw from Afghanistan. That was not an easy call. There was much sacrifice there to offer the people of Afghanistan a better future. But what we've done in a very short span of time is we have reestablished our military presence. We have reestablished flights. We're working with our coalition partners to increase evacuation capacity, and we're going to continue to evacuate as many people as we can.
The U.S. was planning to leave by August 31st. The president says they will now take as long as it takes to get the people out that they've identified. Will we stay as long as it takes? Have we discussed this with our allies in terms of how long we can keep the airport secure to get people out?
We're in constant contact with our coalition. As I just mentioned, we've negotiated an agreement that allows us to increase our evacuation capacity so that Canadian-bound Afghans, people who are coming under our initial special immigration program, as well as those who may be able to come under our humanitarian program, are able to get on American and other coalition flights. That's a good thing. I was on a call earlier this week with my Five Eyes counterparts where we agreed to continue to coordinate at the highest levels so that we can get as many people out as possible. And yes, we will stay until the last possible moment to get as many Afghans out as possible. That is our paramount objective. And again, our armed forces are discharging their responsibilities very well.
In spite of that, though, the Prime Minister admitted this week that it would be, quote, almost impossible to get as many people out of the country as we would want. Does that mean that the numbers that you're talking about, the 20,000, and I realize some of those people would be in third countries, that's not attainable, or that we are going to have to increase the capacity of what we're doing? It seems like there's resignation already on the part of the Prime Minister to the chaotic nature of what's happening on the ground.
Well, I think we have to keep an open mind to doing as much as it takes to get as many people out. And as I said, this is an ongoing effort. I'll just point out that, even after our withdrawal from Afghanistan 10 years ago, Canada has remained a safe haven for Afghan refugees for years. You'll recall the original special immigration measures, which we introduced 10 years ago to evacuate interpreters. The program that we have put into place right now is substantially larger, more flexible, and more compassionate than that one. We are going to set up the humanitarian resettlement pathway for those who've already fled, putting a focus on the most vulnerable, women, girls, other targeted minorities like Sikhs.
I guess, Minister, though, I guess a question might be, though, you keep saying we pulled out 10 years ago, and that's quite right. But for 10 years, and not all under your government, of course, there was the option to try and do these things and help people more and bring people here before then. Should we have been looking for Afghans that wanted to come to Canada before we got to this dire situation?
We have done that by maintaining one of the most robust asylum systems in the world, receiving Afghan refugees each year. And I will say that we are prioritizing that work right now. The Immigration and Refugee Board that presides over these decisions is now prioritizing cases from Afghanistan so that we can more quickly reunite them with their families. And my point to you, Rosie, is we're going to do whatever it takes. We're going to continue to exhaust every effort. We know this is a tragedy, and Canada is doing whatever it can to help, because this is what we do. We've done it in the case of Syria. We did it with the Vietnamese boat people. I think there is going to be the prospect for another national moment here to rally behind the cause of helping the people of Afghanistan.
Let me end on this. There has been criticism, obviously, from your opponents, because we're in the midst of an election campaign, although we're talking in your capacity as minister right now. Has the campaign hampered your ability to do your job, to be the minister who is in charge of this and getting people out? Because you are having a campaign at the same time. So is it getting in the way or distracting you in any way?
I'm focused on one thing. I'm focused on doing my job. And my job is to try and get as many Afghans out as possible. I'm doing that work with my colleagues. We're working around the clock. Of course, I've got a great army of volunteers on the ground who are energized and very enthusiastic. And the feedback that they're hearing is that my constituents are happy for me to be working on this right now. This is where my focus is. And this is an opportunity for Canada to really rally again. I'll just say in conclusion, Rosie, I was there on the tarmac on August the 4th when we received the first Afghan refugees with my colleague, Minister Marco. It was a very profound moment. One of the passengers that arrived was an expectant mom. She's now had her child, and that child is born Canadian. And that's why we need to continue to be focused, because we have the prospect to offer those most vulnerable a better chance at life here in Canada, and we're going to keep doing that.
Okay, Minister, thanks for making the time this morning.
Thank you, Rosie.